Okay. Sorry about that little faux pas before. Okay, this is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Neil.
Hi, my name is Neil. I'm an alcoholic. I'm also an addict. My birthday was July 1st, 1981. I have 9,499 days. I am. I want to wish the birthday people, Paris for 1, Robert for 3, Greg for 13, Michael for 16, of course myself for 26. I want to thank the people that gave me a cake. And let's start off with Lisa Moore. Break your anonymity. Sorry, Lisa M. I've known Lisa for all of her sobriety. For a while there, we were good gambling partners. And we go to Vegas. The only thing we ever do is gamble, sleep, and eat. That's it. We try and go to meetings. We never make it. We just see. We go to one time. We were in Vegas, and we was going to go to an NA meeting at 7:30. We were sharing about this outside, and instead we went to the plaza for those 99-cent shrimp cocktails, and it was at 5:30. We didn't get out of the casino until 2 in the morning. And then the next night, we went to another casino, and the lights went out. Now, and I knew that she and I were both gamblers because we were the only two left in the casino when the lights came back up. Lisa was there with her arm ready to go down on the slot machine. So I want to thank you for showing up. She lives all the way on the top of Topanga, and I know it's a schlep. That's Jewish for a ride. I want to thank my friend Sean. I've known Sean for 16 years. A couple of years ago, he was the chair of a CA convention. I was his right-hand man, and we did good. And he's been of service in a lot of fellowships, and he's a service here and a service down the Rodeo. And he's just a nice guy. He's just one of those people that really is a nice guy and has a really nice sister who spoke last week. I want to thank you very much. Now, Richard. I've known Richard for 22 years and 9 months. I met him when he had 90 days of sobriety. I had 3 years. There used to be a deli in the Marina called Barry's Deli, and I got a job there, and he came up to me, and he was like, unbelievable. He never met anybody with 3 years of sobriety. He had 90 days. He was like shaking, but you know what? He's been my good friend, close friend, as close as anybody in the program. When I got married, and I did get divorced. But when I got married, in a Jewish religion, they have this thing called the hoopla, or hoopah. Right. Well, hey, you know it better than I do. And he was one of the people that held it up for me. I appreciate that. I talk to Richard about 3-4 times a week. We go to meetings together. I love you a lot. And Richard's going through, went through a tough time with marriage, divorce, and things like that. And I'm always there for you. And now, this is my girlfriend. And I met her not in the program. She's not one of us. And I met her online. And she's younger than me. And, and she still wants to hear me speak. And, everybody I introduce her to her, for some reason, like, I introduced her to Sean. Sean says, my condolence, And, I used to be a really hard-head, I used to be, right. But you know what? I'm not like that anymore. And you know what? We have a good relationship. I mean, like we were talking today, and it's like we're driving in a car, and rather than putting the music on and listen to music, because I really like music, I'd rather prefer to listen to her. That's strange for me, let me tell you. And and it's just, I don't know if it's a casual, serious relationship, and it's really good. So thank you very much. And if anybody here is looking for a woman, don't get them anybody in a program. Go outside the program. Huh? The website I went to was called BBP, Big Beautiful People. Hey, you know what? It's like, I couldn't find a woman that, a lot of, people in a program, I find sometimes people judge you on your outsides rather than your insides. And if they look at a person, for instance, that's overweight like myself, they don't go after somebody like myself. They'd rather go out, with, GQ Brad Pitt or something like that. So you know what? You realize that, you know, you have a problem with weight, and you try other sites, and you get lucky. I got lucky, you know. And so, anyway, that's my thanks for these people. Let me share in a general way how I used to be, how I came to the program where I'm at today. And I'm 53 years old, sober 26 years. And my first drink was at, I think, 15 or 16, and I drank sangria. I worked my way up to blackberry brandy. Then I hit Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill. And, you know, I remember, like, back in New York, you can be 18 to drink. You know, and I used to go down to the liquor store or go down to the bars down in the neighborhood and ask, I would call them bums because that's what they were. They were just hanging out, and who knew that I would wind up to be an alcoholic myself? And I would ask them if they can go in, you know, and get me a bottle or something like that, you know, just to get high, you know. And nothing magical really happened to me when I first got high, when I was drinking. But when I started smoking pot, I know this is an AA meeting, and I'll try not to talk too much about drugs, but unfortunately my story is a lot about drugs, you know. And when I first started getting high, it was like a different world. It was like I didn't have to be who I wanted to be. I always like compare myself to my older brother, which I've done a lot, totally like until about 15 years of my sobriety too. You know, compare myself to him because I was a short, fat guy, and he was a skinny, tall, football player kind of guy, good looking, always had the women. You know, and what I did is, you know what, when I smoked or when I got high or when I got drunk, I can be anybody I wanted to be. So, like, I can be better than him or better looking than him or play football better than him and maybe get the girls better than him. And you know what, and that thing never happened. But I really like getting high. I like that feeling, you know. And my choice of drugs was Quaaludes. Anybody take a Quaalude? And my favorite number is 714. She thinks it's ridiculous. I would say the time is 7:14, something 7:14. I'm infatuated with that 7:14, that raw lemon, you know. And you know, we all got high for the same reasons. You know, we didn't like who we were. We didn't like to be who we were. We just wanted to change. I mean, you know what? In the beginning, getting high was great. I mean, I love getting high. I mean, everybody love getting high. Just in the beginning, just getting high, you know. But then, you know, it used to be like a weekend thing. You know, just Saturday and Sunday with the guys, and then it suddenly changed to, well, you know what, Friday is just as good as Saturday and Sunday. And you know, if you're doing that, you must start on Thursday, so you make yourself for the weekend, and then you say, fuck it, excuse the language, just go all the way. Get high every day. You know, I used to get high and go to school. In high school, we would sit in the halls. You know, we didn't care if teachers came by, we would just smoke pot. You know, do whatever we wanted to in the hallways in the high school I went to. I lived in Brooklyn, New York. It was a really shitty neighborhood, to tell you the truth. And but the drugs were good. That's all I didn't care about. You know, the drugs are good. That's all I wanted to be. You know, and And so you know, I just proceeded to get more and more and more, and then you know. And then finally, as we talk in the program, we hit that imaginary line. When getting high was not enough, but we had to use. The big book talks about we live to use and used to live, or something like live to use and used to live, right? Okay. And so I hit that imaginary line where I needed to get high every single day, 24 hours at a time. I needed to get high. You know, that really changed my life a lot. So where a typical day for me, I was telling Janet that I would wake up in the morning. I live down in Venice, down on Clubhouse Avenue. I mean, I take my dog to the park with Roger and his dog, and I look over to the houses where I used to live. And this was back in 1979, 1980. And rent was like $4 1/4 for a 2-bedroom house, and I couldn't even afford half of it, you know. Wait, before I go into California, I eventually moved out of New York and moved to California. I'm in California now. So a typical day for me was, you know, light up a couple of doobies in the morning, take a handful of lewds, like maybe 5 or 6, you know, go out and smoke some more doobies, and go down to the corner to my friend's house. I would put on my roller skates, and I had a nickname. My friends call me Mr. Natural for some reason. And I would skate down to my friend's house, and I would trade him for Coke. You know, I would give him 20 loots, he'd give me a gram of Coke. That's when Coke was $100 a gram. That's, you know, a lot of money. Now, these days, it's not. And, you know, and then I would come back, and I would snort a little bit, and then I would prepare myself to go to this disco. And there was this place called Moody's in Santa Monica. And when I went to Moody's every night, there was Mickey B as my bartender. You know? So when Mickey B tells you he's not an addict, he's lying. Because every time I ordered triple kamikazes, because I don't like to drink those foo-foo drinks. I mean, I want to get loaded. I want to drink straight tequila. You know, and a triple kamikaze with a splash. You know, and I would say to Mickey or somebody in the back there, and I say, you know, instead of a tip, would you like some lewds? You know, I'd give them some lewds. I'd get my drinks for free. I knew everybody at the bar. When they call me Mr. Natural, if you said my name at the bar, you can get in for free. You know, one day, my friend that owned the club finally said to me, Neil, you got to stop selling lewds. I'm losing my bar business. You know, I was selling it out there. You know, but I had a good time, and this is what I would do every single day. I'd go to Moody's every single night and get loaded. I'd black out, find myself out on Santa Monica Boulevard, right on the floor. Always take a cab home. There used to be a Tommy's on Ocean Park. It's now some chicken place. I used to go there and buy like a chili cheeseburger, right? Eat that, throw up, and then go to sleep. And when I went to sleep, it was on a waterbed. You know, that's tough on a waterbed. So what I would do is put my foot over to make sure that I wasn't like floating away or something like that. And this is what I did every single night, every single day. I mean, I had Carte Blanche at Moody's, and then I became 321, 321, or, you know, they became a really young club, and they had all these great parties, and they never invited certain people to, and I always got invited because I had the drugs, you know? Since I was carrying everything, I had the drugs. I mean, like one time I was sitting in the back room smoking pot in the bar, and then this guy named Julio from Peru comes in. Julio from Peru, right? He's got cocaine, right? Of course, you know. And he brings in a Coke, and I tasted my first freebase. You know, and I have to tell you, and then I won't talk about drugs anymore. It's probably the best high I ever had in my life. It was great, you know, but that didn't hit my knees. It didn't make me surrender to this program. It didn't make me hit my bottom. You know, I continued to get high constantly and constantly and constantly. Until one day, I got fired from jobs. I couldn't keep a job, had no money, I didn't have a place to stay. And I went to this agency on Pico Boulevard, and it's no longer there. I don't know what it's there. I think it's a Subway or something. And I met a gentleman. His name was Paul. I saw him after I had my first 30 days of sobriety. I never saw him again. I don't know his last name. I didn't know nothing about it. But as we talk in the program about the 12-step, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry the message and pass the message to others. And that's what he did to me. When I came in there, I was still slurring. I don't know if you ever taken pills, and if you don't take them for a while, and even if you do, when you talk, you slur. And I was slurring, even though I haven't taken pills for about 7 days, because I just couldn't afford it no more. You know, at the end of my using, man, I couldn't even smoke any pot. I know I said I was going to stop, but I was smoking seeds. I couldn't get high anymore, you know, I just couldn't do it. And this guy told me about Alcoholics Anonymous, and he talked about Narcotics Anonymous. And he told me, you know, he says, I know of 2 places you can check in where you can stay there, maybe get some recovery, maybe get back on your feet. And the 2 recovery houses he talked about, one was Cry Hope in North Hollywood, and the other one was Impact in Pasadena. I didn't even know where North Hollywood was, never heard of it, but the only thing I've heard of Pasadena was that they had a Rose Parade out there, and I was really into sports and football, so I chose Impact. I don't know why, but it was the best move I ever made in my life. I came into Impact, it was July 1st, 1981. It was a Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I can remember it just like it was yesterday. I walk in, and they're having a meeting. They had these 2 o'clock meetings there every day. And I walk in, you know, and they told me to sit in this room, and I'm sitting in this room, and all of a sudden at 3 o'clock, everybody gets up and said the Lord's Prayer. And I said to myself, what am I doing in a place like this? You know, I've never heard of the Lord's Prayer being Jewish. You know, when we pray, we get down on our knees. You know, we daven. But I didn't know where I was. And another thing, I was the only Jewish person in the room. You know, and I didn't really feel comfortable. You know, and there was a lot of people there. I remember there was about 65 people, and I felt so little and so lonely. You know, and I proceeded to stay at Impact. You know, and after 90 days, they have these different phases. I got kicked out because I have a problem with my attitude. I still have a problem with my attitude. And then I remember coming back home, and I was like, I give an example of how messed up I was. Where my brother's girlfriend, I called my brother when I got kicked out of Impact, and I asked him if I can stay at his house. He was out of town, and his girlfriend was staying in a house in Westchester. And she told me I can stay at the house, but she wouldn't stay there with me. You know, you really feel really low when that happens, you know. And so I stayed in his house, and then I did chores there just like I was doing at Impact. And then I went to stay with a friend of mine named Ty Brown in Venice, and he had pot, you know, and I wanted to get high. I really wanted to get high. So I went into his stash, and I rolled a joint. And that night I went to an NA meeting, and I met these two women. And these two women asked me where I was going, and I told them I was going to 321. And it says I was going to go dance. You know what, I hate dancing. You know, I still hate dancing. And I don't like when people watch me. I got this thing about people watching me, you know, and we went dancing, you know what? And I took that joint and I threw it away. And I think that was my surrender right then and there. Because I wanted to get high probably in my first 90 days. I probably wanted to get high because I didn't know any better. I didn't know what recovery was about. I couldn't believe in a God. I didn't know if there was a God, you know. I had a sponsor that I didn't make the second phase, so he fired me. I don't understand that, how, you know, when you're asking for help and people say yes, and if something doesn't go the right way, they get rid of you. You know, and that's not what the program's all about. And, you know, so I went back to the house, and then I got kicked out another 30 days later. And a lot of people get kicked out of Impact. Yeah. You know, it's the ones that stay sober a long time. And then I found a sponsor. His name is Alex L. He's in Pasadena. He's been my sponsor now for almost 26 years of sobriety. I found him when I had about 102 days of sobriety. And I had what he wanted. And what he had was sobriety. He had serenity in his life. His personal life, I didn't want anything to do with it. I just wanted what he had, his sobriety and serenity. And he's still the kind, loving man that he is today. And what I liked about him, he's never told me what to do in sobriety. He's always given me suggestions of what I can do. He never told me what to do. You know, that's what I like. I wouldn't want to find a sponsor that tells me what to do because I'll just walk away and go somewhere else. You know, I just rather have somebody that can suggest it. Maybe this might be a better way, Neil, or this might be a better way, or my experience, I can tell you what might be a better way. You know, I stayed at my, Alex sponsored this guy, Frank. I stayed at his house for 30 days, and then I started my, my longevity and sobriety. And I immediately got into service in Narcotics Anonymous. I became a GSR at a meeting. I became a treasurer at a meeting. I didn't have a car in the beginning. And so, like, if I needed to go to a meeting, I would always take a bus. And I always raise my hand, and I always got a ride home. So if you're riding, you know, if you can't get a ride, share about it, raise your hand. Somebody will give you a ride. And if they can't give them a ride, they'll probably give you money to take a bus or something like that. Because, like, when those girls took me dancing that night, and I felt so good, and in the morning, they took me to breakfast, you know, and I says, how can I repay you? And they told me the only way you can repay us is by helping another newcomer just like I'm helping you. You know, and that's what I strive to do is, you know, I try and help people, but, you know, people don't want my help for some reason. You know, and it's okay. People don't want what I have.
Yes, they do.
You know, some people do, some people don't. Some people want to star in the meetings, you know. Somebody that sponsors 55 million people, you know. Somebody that drives a vet, makes $100,000 in a week or something like that, you know. But, sometimes they just don't want what a regular guy has. You know what? But you know what I got today is I got 26 years of sobriety. You know, I went to Maui a couple of weeks ago for the AA Fest, and this guy was telling me that he just heard somebody with 20 years of sobriety, and he didn't want what he had. Now, if I was new, and I didn't like his story, but then again, who am I to judge another person's story? Their story is their story, just like my story. I'm pretty sure you're probably out there probably judging me, and that's okay. You know, because when I go home tonight, I'll sleep good. I'll stay sober, you know. So, and the guy's telling me, but he had no story. But if you don't know where the guy came from, how do you know if his story is good today? And I says, he's got 20 years of sobriety. That's what I would want if I was a newcomer. You know, I'm looking for people that's got more than 26 years. Like I go to the Brentwood meeting on Thursday night, you know, and my sponsor, Al S., has got 43 years of sobriety. I don't want what he's got, you know. And I see other people in that meeting with over 35, 40, you know, and Jack that comes here, he's got 50 years of sobriety. How do you get 50 years of sobriety? You know, simple. You don't use no matter what, you know. When I got kicked out of Impact, I remember, and I was trying to make back my meetings to go back. You can go back there if you get your card signed. And I met Bobby T. You know Bobby T. You know, I met him down at in Pico Avenue, and he told me to go to West Side Alano Club. And I went there to meetings, and I remember there was a guy named Jack R. speaking, and he had 5 years of sobriety. You know, being the newcomer with like 90 days, I said to him, how do you get 5 years? I mean, I want 5 years right now. You know, we're addicts and alcoholics. We want everything right now, right now. And he told me, stick around for 5 years and don't use them between meetings, one day at a time. You know, just like Jan and I are working on this relationship, and she says to me, it's one day at a time. Just like life, you know, today, it's just one day at a time. I go to meetings, one day at a time. I wake up, one day at a time, you know. I help other people, just one day at a time. And it's just one day at a time. I got a lot of years, but the way I got it was one day at a time, you know. So I want to share just a couple of stories in sobriety, which has really been very important for me. In 1983, was it 1983? No, 1985. Right, I was working the CA hotline. I go to CA as well. It's another program. It's called Who's Anonymous. And anyway, they should call it Nose Anonymous. And I go to that I went there, and I was doing some service over there. And a friend of mine named Harvey G. was working the hotline. And he was working the hotline every single day from 10 o'clock until 2. And I said to him, Harvey, what are you doing here? You're here every day. Don't you have a job? He says, no, I'm waiting. I says, what are you waiting for? He says, I'm waiting to go to court. I said, what are you going to court for? He says, well, when he got busted, you know, and he was waiting for a trial date so he can go to court and go to prison in sobriety. And that's what he did. You know, I remember I went to the courthouse. I saw him get, you know, that old story, you know, just recently we went and a buddy of ours went to jail. And we went to the courthouse, and there were 75 people from AA in the courthouse. But when I went with Harvey, it was only Harvey, myself, Patty, his sister, Patty's sister, and the lawyer. And he had hundreds of letters, hundreds. You know, and then the judge, Gravel, 5 years, gave him 5 years. He was on crutches. I mean, he had a problem. And then they threw him in a holding cell. They brought him back out, and they gave him 4 years. It took off a year. So in that time, you can do, 50%, 2 years or 22 months. So I remember Richard going out there and visiting Harvey. And then Richard comes back to me one day and says, you know, Harvey wants to see you. So for the next 22 months, Richard and I, we would drive newcomers out there to see Harvey. We would tell newcomers, if you think you got it bad, let's go see Harvey. You know? And he was in Chino, which is 60 miles away, and 60 miles back. You know, and then some days we would just go ourselves. And I remember standing on line. And this guy had a gold coin. Would he have a 20-year or a 22-year? And that's something I wanted. There was, you know, a lot of sober people, you know, and he stayed in once a month for 22 months, and then we visit him down in downtown. You know, we used to bring him food. Richard was working in the fish and meat department, brought him slabs of lox and bagels. You know, we would go to Campos and bring him burritos. They don't eat good in prison, you know, and that's what we did. And you know what? He's still my accountant, and he's still my good friend, and Friday night he'll be giving me a cake, you know. And that's the story, you know. And you know, what I got out of that was being able to help somebody in sobriety without receiving anything back right then and there. You know, because everybody thinks, I find, even myself, I used to do this in early sobriety. Well, I'm going to help you, so what can you give me back in return? What am I going to get back in return? You know, and I knew that someday I'm going to need Harvey's help. You know, not just because he's my accountant or things like that, but I knew, and tomorrow makes 14 years my mother died, 1993, July 5th. And I remember I couldn't take cakes on that day, because I couldn't take cakes on that day because I was grieving. And Harvey told me that the day that his father died, his wife got sober. And he told me, Neil, take a cake and tell people that, yeah, you're celebrating your birthday, but you're still grieving. And let people know that, you know what, life goes on no matter what happens. I mean, just because we get clean and sober doesn't mean life's going to stop. They're not waiting out there for us just because, we're in this room and we're safe for the moment. Life still goes on. It's not a bed of roses out there. You gotta go through the pain. No pain, no gain, A couple of months ago, I had bad knees. I don't have bad knees anymore. But I had bad knees, and I went in for an operation. They had to replace one of my knees. I was real hesitant to take medicine because I heard so many stories here. Take medication, start using. I don't want to blow my sobriety. So I remember having my knee operated on, and I was really in pain. I finally took the medicine, and they gave me a lot of Percocets, and they gave me a lot of Vicodin, and after 3 weeks, I gave it up. So then I had another knee replaced. So I got 2 knee replaced. I got $100,000 worth of titanium in both my knees now. And so when I went to the doctor the second time, I didn't hesitate. When the guy says I got some medicine, I just put my hand out and says, give me what you got. Because I knew what was going to happen, and I knew I can stay sober no matter what. No matter what. Because this is what they told me early in my sobriety, no matter what happens in sobriety, you're going to stay sober. You know what? I got married in sobriety. That hurt, yeah. I got divorced. Hey! I'm saying. She comes to this room. I'm not going to tell you who it is. You can ask these guys. I don't want to put her name in my pitch because I'm being taped. You know what? We broke up. We divorced in '92, and then I had to file bankruptcy in '97. I stopped talking to her. And anybody would ask me, so how is Jill? Excuse me. How is Jill doing? And I would say, well, if you're my friend, don't ask me what's doing. I had a big resentment. And you know what? So the beginning of this year, I let the resentment go. I talk to her. I see her. She's on the musician's picnic with me, with us. And I talk to her. And, that bankruptcy I filed in '97, well, it got released this year, And so I feel as soon as that resentment, came off, and as soon as that bankruptcy came off, I was ready for a relationship with her. This is what I think. But who knows what I think, if it's true or not. That's all I have to go on is by my guts and how I feel by staying sober. I'm not a big book thumper. I don't read the big book. Sorry. I don't do the steps. The steps do me. I don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I got to do step 1, 2, and 3. 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, and 9. I do them, it does me. If I stay sober and do what I'm doing, as Danny T says, my primary purpose here is to pass the message. And he always stresses this at the end of the meeting, right? Every time he talks. Meetings, meetings, and meetings. When I got married, I went to meetings. When I got divorced, I went to meetings. When I filed for bankruptcy, I went to meetings. When I got my knees operated on, I went to meetings. I went to meetings no matter what. I'm one of those people that I constantly go to 4 to 5 meetings a week. She tells me, she says, I want to make sure you go to your meetings, no matter what. Because, you don't have to tell me to go to meetings. I go to meetings because I want to stay clean and sober for the rest of my life, one day at a time. Like I say, I have a great sponsor. I got friends. Look, my friend Richard, Craig, Ned, Lisa, Roger, Sean, happy birthday, Michael, Janet. I got friends here, They all come out and supported me, I told them I was speaking. I really didn't want to speak on July 4th because I really wanted to go out and hear the fireworks. But you know what? I don't hear the fireworks on July 4th. I usually stay home with my dog because he gets scared. But, and then I'll share one more story, and then I'm going to leave. My dog, I had 2 dogs. I got 2 dogs when I was married to Jill. And in the divorce, she left, took the dogs, Sam and Martha. 2 full-blood beagles, raised them from 6 months. And then when they turned 13, I had to put one down. It was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. I mean, I emailed, I called up people. If you're a dog lover, you know what I mean. And everybody told me, well, don't worry about it because you have the sister. 'Cause Martha was the girl. And 3 days later, I found her dead in my house. You know, and I had to call my brother. And you know what? It's going to happen if you're a dog or a cat lover. So I went out like 3 weeks later and I found another dog. And it's another. I wanted a beagle, and I named him Sammy, not to replace the other Sammy because the other Sam had a good life, but it's a new Sammy, you know, and I love him. You know, what comes first in my life is my sobriety. Sometimes my dog over my family because, you know, my family didn't even wish me a happy birthday. You know, they don't even know it's my birthday. And, but that's okay, but they still love me no matter what. You know, and then it goes on and on and on. You know, but my number one priority is my sobriety. And you know what? I don't know what else to share. I don't know if I share the message, you know. Maybe somebody else would let me speak somewhere else. Maybe I'll be better. Who knows? But you know what? I want to thank Sean for letting me come out and sharing and celebrating my birthday. And once again, happy birthday to everybody else.